Okay.
Hi everyone, welcome to Wisdom. Wisdom is the part of nectar of all senior devotee who was experienced with Srila Prabhupada. And today we are happy and very glad that one of senior devotee from Montreal, His Grace Laksminatha Prabhu is here. So thank you so much, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Except mine.
Lakshminath Prabhu is one of senior devotee in Montreal and Montreal, Canada. Montreal temple is actually very quite old. It is considered third temple of ISKCON. New York, San Francisco, then Montreal. And he doing a lot of service, Srila Prabhupada. And his powerful preaching when I was Montreal 2002 to 2006, 4 years, I saw his powerful preaching and he's so kind to helping devotees. And he continued his service in Montreal temple long time. And every day still he doing Srimad Bhagavatam. Before he start Srimad Bhagavatam, he complete just and come this wisdom. And we know more about from him how he first attend the Srila Prabhupada mission in ISKCON and how going ISKCON right now and what his advice of next generation. His lot of experience with ISKCON and other devotees. He's one of the great devotee of Srila Prabhupada that continued the mission of Hare Krishna movement for a long time in different city of Canada and outside. So wisdom is actually three parts. First part is doing of Srila Prabhupada experience, and second part one interesting topic. Today our topic is devotional principle, and later on we have question and answer. So everybody I request please any question you can ask for Facebook, YouTube, and please stay tuned. So I pass to Prabhuji to going his experience. So thank you again, Prabhuji, for your come here. We are so glad and gratitude to you to hear.
We'll see after you're speaking.
So first I start how you get what things very important things attract you to join Hare Krishna movement in that time. Can you start with this?
I offer my pranams to Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Name, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravanam Charini, Nirvishesha Sunyavari, Pastacha Desatarani. I started seeing the devotees around 1971 when I was probably around 13 years old in Ottawa. They didn't have a temple that I know at that time, or maybe they were trying to start one. Mostly devotees were coming from Toronto or Montreal. They would do a little Harinam, and I would see them. There's a farmer's market in Ottawa called the Byward Market, and I would often go there. There was one store, Freeman store, and I used to go in there and shop. So sometimes I would see the devotees, and one remarkable thing I remember is they were all in saffron, orange color, and even their running shoes were saffron, which was, in those days, our running shoes were black and white, but they were saffron. So it was something that I'd remarked, but I wasn't paying that much attention. It was one of the things that was going on the Byward Market, and I was pretty busy. But later on, when I got a little older, around 16 years old, I started working on the Byward Market. Mm-hmm. My father knew this Jewish fellow, Mr. Balone, who had a store there on the Byward Market, and as a summer job, I was working there. And one morning on Saturday, maybe around noon or so, the devotees were doing Harinam, and they were filing and walking in front of the storefront window. I was inside the store; they were outside, and people were, kind of amused and so forth, and kind of mocking them a bit, and like that. And I was like, really, I'd stopped doing what I was doing, and I was just observing the devotees walking by. And at that time, I was thinking, boy, I knew it was some kind of religious event, but I didn't know exactly what it was, really. but I knew it was religious, and I was thinking I wouldn't be doing this for Jesus, going out and parading like that and people mocking and so forth. So I had at that time a good respect. I respected the devotees, not knowing exactly what they were doing, but I thought these are serious people. And because I was no longer doing my job, I was temporarily stopped and observing the devotees in the window. My boss looked at me and said, "Hey, how would you like to be one of those guys?" So later on, about a year later, I quit going to school and I was working for the government. And a friend of mine, Michael, he had seen the devotees on the in Ottawa. You have a street that's closed called the Park Street Mall. It's an open street with fountains and bars and things and cafes. So he wanted me to transfer to that area so we would see the Hare Krishnas and the devotees. So that's what I did. And at lunchtime, I would meet the devotees on Harinam and I would speak to them and so forth. And actually, prior to that, I'd actually even gone to the temple. I had gotten off the bus after working, and on Bezerer Street, they had a little house there, which was a temple, and there was a sign, Bhakti Yoga. And I had a teacher, grade 7, who was into yoga. He was always calm, and although we were pretty active as a class, but he was always remaining calm. So I appreciated that of him. So when I saw Bhakti Yoga, I knocked on the door, and then there was the Hare Krishna devotees there. And I said, "Oh, these are the same people I've been seeing on the street and here and there." So that was probably in 73. They must have opened the temple by then and so forth. So then I bought some beads, and they sold me a Krishna book. And I went home and I chanted one round. And at that time, I decided I'm going to become one of those guys, because I had experienced such a wonderful thing by chanting, one round of japa of Hare Krishna, that I became convinced. And not too long after that, somehow Krishna made arrangement that I was fired from my job, which I was praying to Krishna to do for me, joined the Harinam party, and eventually moved in the temple. And about 2 weeks later, we ended up going to New Vrindavan to see Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was arriving there. In those days, we would do person collect call, because we didn't want to pay for the phone. And they said, "Yes, Swamiji's here, but he's on the Glove Gym break." So that was our cue. We knew Prabhupada was there. So we drove down to New Vrindavan and was able to see Srila Prabhupada. And that was a really wonderful thing to see Prabhupada there in person. And, devotees, of course, Krishna Das, who's in Toronto now, and Raghava Pandit, who's now Bhakti Raghava Swami. He was Raghava Pandit then when he got initiated. They got initiated in New Vrindavan, but I joined a little later than them. They joined maybe 3 months prior to me. But I was young. I was just 17. I was about to turn 18, but I was just 17. So they didn't want me to get initiated. I really was kicking myself, missing the occasion, because I thought, where am I going to see Prabhupada again? I didn't realize you could get initiated by mail. I thought Prabhupada's here, and I'm not going to get initiated, and I missed the boat. So I was really kicking myself for not joining prior to that. But anyway, so it was a wonderful occasion where Prabhupada was there, and we were all there hearing Prabhupada's classes and so forth. And so that was the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada. Then when I came back to Ottawa, there was an occasion to Prabhupada wanted devotees to learn how to make mridangas. And Ishan Prabhu had gone to India to learn how to do it. And there was one devotee, female devotee in Toronto, Vrinda, if I remember her name. She was a professional potter. So she was there in Toronto, and Ishan was going to go to Toronto, and they were together. She was going to make the clay shells. He was going to work the leather, and they would make mridangas. But somehow Ishan, it didn't work out. He ended up going to LA. But I was there in Toronto because of that. I was waiting for Ishan to come back from India. And in the meantime, they sent me on traveling Sankirtan. And I went out with Bhakti Marg Maharaj, who was Bhakti Marg Brahmachari then, Giri Jadava, and Tarakanath. And because Canada was so cold in winter, we would go down south. So we went down south, and we ended up in Atlanta. And Prabhupada was, we lined it up to see Srila Prabhupada when he was arriving in Atlanta. And although I had already been initiated in a letter form, my beads were supposed to go to Kirtanananda Maharaj and get chanted on but that hadn't taken place because I wasn't traveling Sankirtan. So I ended up giving my beads to Srila Prabhupada, and he chanted on them. And I was able to sit there for the fire sacrifice. And many devotees have explained the wonderful occasion of being with Srila Prabhupada there in Atlanta, where Prabhupada played the Parama Karuna song and played the mridanga, which he hadn't done in 2 years. There was a day where he did artik to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. I think it was his appearance day or disappearance, forget now. But so there were many wonderful occasions there also where I get the chance to see Srila Prabhupada at that occasion. And then that was in January 1975. And probably by in the summer of 1975 again, there was Rath Yatra in Philadelphia, and Srila Prabhupada was coming for that. So I got the occasion to see Srila Prabhupada there also. And that was also a very, very wonderful occasion. And there was a specific thing there that took place because there was a lot of noise. They were preparing Rath Yatra. They were pulling out the asans for the deities and so forth. There was a lot of noise in the hallway of that temple. So devotees decided to close the doors so there wouldn't be any noise coming out from the hallway and so forth, and that Prabhupada would not be disturbed during his class. But Prabhupada was so observant. He wasn't in his own bubble. He was giving class. He was very absorbed, but he was aware of what was going on. Immediately, he said, why the doors closed? So, Prabhupada, there's disturbance, there's noise. No. They need to hear. Open the doors. There was devotees all over the place. So when they closed the doors, some devotees were left outside in the hallway. Prabhupada wanted those doors open. He didn't mind being disturbed. For Krishna preaching, he didn't mind being disturbed. So I really noted that Prabhupada was a very conscious person, very compassionate in that. So that was very touching at that time. In Atlanta, of course, I forgot that at one point, devotees asked Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And there was Radha Damodar group was there with Vishnu John. It wasn't Tamal, I forget now. But it was kind of a loaded question. We're all waiting for Prabhupada to say that if you distribute my books, that's most pleasing to me. And Prabhupada was often giving lectures or sending out letters about the importance of book distribution. But Prabhupada could see that it was going to inspire those who distribute books, but what about everybody else who's cleaning the temple, who's cooking, who's doing deity worship? So Prabhupada answered in a very wonderful way. He said, how did he say it? If you love Krishna, if you love Krishna. And that raised the consciousness of everyone. Because, if you love Krishna, you'll distribute books, but you'll clean the temple. You'll do whatever is needed, whatever is required. So Prabhupada, in that way, he raised our consciousness by that simple statement that if you love Krishna. And in Philadelphia, as I mentioned, there was Rath Yatra, so Prabhupada came on the cart. And Prabhupada was a little late he came a little later. The parade had already started. The Rath Yatra festival was started. The carts were being pulled, and Prabhupada arrived at a certain intersection there. They stopped the cart. Prabhupada got out of his vehicle, and we were following Srila Prabhupada behind because we were also late. We were downstairs in the kitchen preparing fruit salads, tons and tons, huge barrels of fruit salad. So when we got out, we thought, man, we've missed it. But when we came out, Srila Prabhupada was also coming out with Brahmananda and other sannyasis. So they got in the car, we got in the car, and we started following Srila Prabhupada. And when Srila Prabhupada arrived in front of the cart of Lord Jagannath, right in the middle of the street, thousands of people and so forth, devotees, Prabhupada offered full obeisances, full dandavats. He wasn't intimidated or thinking, well, how's this going to look? What are the people going to think? No, he was a devotee in front of Lord Jagannath. He was going to offer his full dandavats, and other people would have to understand what's going on. And if they didn't, that was their shortcoming. But Srila Prabhupada was not compromising and thinking, okay, this is America. These people don't know the culture. It's going to look a little foolish if I do this. No, it wasn't like that. And every devotee that was there offered obeisances, when Srila Prabhupada arrived, and seeing Prabhupada offering obeisance to Jagannath, everyone was inspired to do that. And then another occasion when I got a chance to see Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and Mayapur during the Gaur Purnima festival in 1976. That's when I got my Brahminical initiation in Srila Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan in April, I think April 4th or something like that. And that was a wonderful occasion to be with Srila Prabhupada and to hear the different classes and so forth. And then lastly, it was Srila Prabhupada in Toronto. When Prabhupada came in 76 in Toronto, when they just bought the church, there was a big event to get this wonderful church on Avenue Road. Was probably one of the most, that and the Detroit Temple were the most prestigious building of ISKCON at the time. So it was quite an achievement for the devotees. Have been working hard to get this temple. And the Christians, of course, were not willing to sell it to us, but some arrangements were made, and we were still able to buy this church. And fortunately, in Vrindavan, I wanted to fan Srila Prabhupada during his Guru Puja, but the devotee doing that was not so willing to give up that service. So in Toronto, Ganesham at the time, he became Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He was fanning Srila Prabhupada, and he was very austere. He would get up around 2 every day, 2 in the morning, chant 32 rounds and so forth. So he was feeling a little tired and nodding out a little bit, and I thought, this is my cue. So I kind of came forward and I asked him if I could fan Prabhupada, and he was so kind that he said yes. So that was very nice that I got a little bit of chance to fan Prabhupada at that time. And then Prabhupada was pretty heavy in his preaching. He was telling them that, if you become too attached to this Western civilization, the temple was packed of a lot of Indian. Toronto has a big Indian population, and they were all there to listen to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was pretty heavy, like I say. He was saying that you'll become cockroaches in your car if you become too attached to this Western civilization. Don't become old crows, the new crows and the old crows. So he was pretty, but they loved it. They appreciated Prabhupada's strong preaching, and they knew that Prabhupada was right. He was telling them the real thing, that don't lose your culture. Don't come in the West and just lose everything. Remain Krishna conscious, and this temple is a temple for you, and it's a place for you. And when Prabhupada got up from his Vyasasan after the class, they were all diving in Prabhupada's feet to touch his feet. And we were all so afraid that they would somehow trip Prabhupada. Prabhupada would be tripped by all of them trying to grab at Prabhupada's feet. So we were trying to pull him away from Srila Prabhupada to make sure that he didn't get injured in the process. So, yeah, there was extraordinary times, and somehow we were blessed to be connected with that. So that's 20 minutes. So pretty, short, pretty condensed.
Okay.
I don't have to elaborate too much, but anyway, that's good. It's 20 minutes a week.
I asked one question for you.
Yes.
So when you joined ISKCON, and any issue with your family life?
Well, family life, I was staying still in my
mother.
My father passed away when I was 11. Of course, they were a little surprised and shocked. But what could they do? I was at an age that, but my mother thought she had seen films of Mahatma Gandhi fasting and so forth. And she thought this was what I was joining, some kind of thing that would a lot of fasting, and I would, be losing weight and kind of a strange thing. So, and she thought, well, you're already a Christian, why would you join some Hindu thing? And I had long hair. I had hair down to my back, and my mother always wanted me to get a nice haircut. But then when she saw me with a shaved head, she was wondering, why. I wouldn't cut my hair for her, but I did it for Prabhupada. She couldn't understand. But later on, I was able to explain things to her, and she was very grateful when she was dying that I was next to her and explaining Krishna consciousness, and I was able to chant, I think around 40 rounds that day next to her bed when I was sleeping next to her in the hospital. She had the liver cancer. So she had about 2 weeks to live, and I was able to spend those 2 weeks with her and be there every day. And at the hospital, they gave me a bed. I could sleep next to her and kind of take care of her from a spiritual side and give her Charanamrita and things like that. So yeah, it was, she appreciated Krishna consciousness at the end. When she was able to, she was pious, she was Christian, not practicing so much, but she understood the notion of God and all that, and she could appreciate the Krishna conscious aspect to the extent that she could, but she definitely could appreciate it.
Thank you for your wonderful nectar experience with Srila Prabhupada. It is very useful to next generation. So we are coming to the second part. The topic is spiritual devotional principle. So after devotional principle, we can talk about question and answer.
Yes. Questions are always very important because they're more important to the individual. So devotional principle in Krishna consciousness are two things. One, do everything as you not forget Krishna, and avoid everything that will make you forget Krishna. So always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. These are the two principles that we have, actually. And as Krishna says, Yat karosi yadashnasi yajahosi dadasiyat yatapasasi kunteya mat purusham marapanam, that, whatever you do, whatever offering, whatever sacrifice you perform should be done as an offering unto me. So that is the understanding of how we can act in such a way that we never forget Krishna, that we try to see, that we try to connect everything of our lives in such a way that we don't forget Krishna, that we always remember Krishna. And it has to be in a mood of devotional, favorable devotional service. Kamsa never forgot Krishna, but it was not favorable. It was unfavorable. So that's not considered devotional service. It's not something we want. Although in the Nectar of Devotion, and it's described how Rupa Goswami uses Kamsa to describe the intensity, just like when you hate someone, you're really, or you want to get even with a person that you feel might have caused some injustice or insulted you, whatever, you're really absorbed on that person. You really, so that's good. That absorption is good, but it has to be favorable. So we want that intensity, that capacity to constantly be, otherwise, why is it a problem? Well, because if you don't offer things to Krishna, Krishna says, that it becomes a sin. If you don't offer your food to him, it becomes a sinful act. And the sinful act is something that interferes with our capacity to serve Krishna, to be absorbed in Krishna. We call it anartha. It's like interference, like static. Like you have you have the radio and you're tuning into the radio station, but there's interference, and therefore you're not getting a clear sound. So we don't want an interference, but that's there. The interference is there. Why? Because we're nityabada, we're conditioned souls. And therefore we are conditioned. We have a conditioning on us that prevents us from absorbing ourselves in Krishna. So what to do with that conditioning? You may accept even the principle in theory that Krishna is God and I should surrender, but the conditioning may be inhibiting your ability to do that. So what to do? So Lord Chaitanya said, Chaito Darpanam Marjanam. There's a cleansing process by chanting Hare Krishna, by absorbing the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam. There's a process that we engage in, and also Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees. That is very, very important. Lord Chaitanya describes this, how important it is to associate. And that's why Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON as a movement by which people who are like-minded can associate together and get strength in numbers. And he described that just like you have a string, you can easily break that string. But when you combine it together, it becomes a rope. That rope becomes very difficult to break. So by ourselves, we might be easily broken. The influence of Maya is very strong, and we already have that predisposition. We're already conditioned towards Maya. But by associating with devotees, we become strengthened, we become strong. And that is the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. That together as a group, not isolating ourselves, but joining others who are also interested in Krishna consciousness. So these are some of the principles that are, and therefore we have to be the architect of our destiny. We have to figure out our lives and say, okay, where am I going to position myself? Doesn't matter if you're brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. That's not that important. But the point is, how am I going to live my life, conduct myself, and establish myself in such a way that I can meet these things. I can meet these obligations. Why? For my Krishna consciousness. Where can I find the inspiration that where I live close to a temple, when I get the association of devotees, and if I can't, well, there's wonderful vehicles like you're producing today to try to have devotees associate and hear and chant and be inspired to do that, because that is the only way that we're going to get out of this material world. As Krishna says, Abrahma bhuvanaloka punar vartinochuna mamupete tu konteya punar navinjavintate. That even up to Brahmaloka, there's what? Dukalayama shasvatam. There's misery, different kleshas, different miseries that are there. And padam padam navi padam natesham. At every step, there's some problem, there's some difficulty. So the materialists, they're thinking that there's a material solution to their problems. But a devotee realizes that no, I've been trying that for lifetime after lifetime, and I realize that I may find a temporary solution with material by engaging in material pursuit and doing material things, but the long term and the total removal of suffering, that can only take place if I absorb myself in Krishna. Why? Because at the time of death, as Krishna says, you'll come back to me. One who absorbs himself, one who knows the birth of my appearance, does not take birth again in this material world. And the material world, the cycle of samsara, will cause one to reincarnate, come back, and be implicated in the material existence. And we see this in modern society. Now we have the pandemic, and everyone's looking for the vaccine, and that may solve a temporary problem. But even if you get vaccinated, it doesn't mean you're not going to die. It means you may be postponing that death. You may be postponing that suffering, but another suffering will come along. People are getting divorced. People are having mental problems. People have drug addiction. People are committing suicide. There are so many different problems in this world. So, but the solution is Krishna consciousness. And that's what the scriptures are telling us. That's what the guru are telling us. That's what the sadhus are telling us. Unfortunately, people don't have that knowledge. Unfortunately, people don't identify with Krishna. They don't have that experience, and therefore they're not inclined to doing that. And that's where sadhu sangha, associating with devotees, is important, because it inspires us to have that inclination to develop that attachment to the point where Krishna becomes very significant in our lives. Like Krishna has a very great importance in our lives. And in that way, as we develop, we mature, we get a taste for Krishna consciousness, naturally the material influence or the material conditioning will diminish. Krishna explains that the whole material world will be reduced to the size of a calf's hoof print. So how does that take place? Is that my consciousness gets separated, it gets distant from material energy, material influence. Just like the sun is very far away and it looks like a little disc in the sky. But it's not a disc, it's very huge. But because it's distant, it appears very small. So this material world, because we allow our consciousness to be absorbed in it, it appears very big. But if we start absorbing our consciousness into Krishna, into the spiritual energy, then this material energy will diminish to a size of a calf footprint, and we'll easily be able to walk, cross it, to step over it. If not, Devi Yesha Gunamayi Mamaya Jarateya, Mami Vaye Prapadyante, Mayamitam Tarantate. That this Durga means impossible, surmountable. So on our own, we cannot surmount this material energy. But we can only do it if we surrender to Krishna. And surrender means to have a favorable attitude towards Krishna. That's what surrender means. It means voluntarily wanting to offer ourselves, wanting to give ourselves to Krishna. Why? Because we see the attachment, we see the connection. We see how we are meant to be with Krishna. Just like the hand, my hand has to move, and because it's part of me, it's meant to serve me. If my hand is not serving me, if I want to scratch my head and I can't accomplish that, that means there's something wrong with my arm or something wrong with my hand. It's diseased. And therefore, I require a doctor to cure it. I go to the hospital, I go say, doctor, there's something wrong with my arm. It's not moving. It's not doing what I want it to do. So similarly, if we realize that I am not able to do what I'm supposed to do, which is service to Krishna, because I'm connected to Krishna. Therefore, tadvidi pranipatena, I approach a spiritual master, a spiritual doctor, who will help me understand why am I not connecting myself with Krishna, and why am I not rendering service to Krishna. And if I do that, then I get out of the disease condition of material existence, reestablish myself, Jivere Sarupai Nitya Krishna Das, I become the eternal servant of Krishna. And naturally, in that position, I become joyful. I don't have to make an extraneous effort to become jolly, to become happy. It becomes very natural. Just like the hand, if it's serving the body, that means it's healthy. So if I'm serving Krishna, I'm in a healthy state of consciousness. And in that healthy state of consciousness, I can actually enjoy everything. But in a disease condition, if I'm diseased, eating is difficult, sleeping is difficult, walking is difficult, everything becomes difficult because I'm diseased. When I'm healthy, I enjoy jogging, I enjoy eating, I enjoy these things because I'm healthy. But in the disease condition, that I cannot do. So similarly, we see the people, although they have everything, especially in the Western country, there's so much money, so much opulence, so much facility, nice cars, nice house, nice wife, nice children, still they're miserable because they're diseased. They're not connected to Krishna, and therefore they cannot really enjoy these things. They're always miserable. They're always suffering. They're going on strike. They're taking drugs. Why? These are all symptoms of a disease condition. People are not happy. They're frustrated in their situation. But a devotee, he's shanti, he's peaceful, because he's experiencing the natural state of existence. And Lord Chaitanya said, this state is anandam buddhi vardhanam. It's an ocean of bliss. It's not just a drop. It's an ocean. Therefore, the devotee, being in that ocean of bliss, he becomes atmaram. He becomes self-satisfied. He's not requiring all the externals that most people feel they need. He becomes very peaceful, very simple. He can live a very simple life, a very natural life. And therefore, he doesn't have to waste his energy or over-endeavor for mundane things that are simply implicating him more and more in the material energy. He can very easily remain peaceful. He can very easily, just by chanting Hare Krishna, feel so much content. And that's very important because, unfortunately, most people today, they get gratification, but they're not content. Very few people are content. But gratification, it's a high and then a low. You go high, you gratify, and then you go down and you get depressed. But a state of being content is in the mode of goodness. It's not in the mode of passion, where it's continuous, where you're constantly feeling joyful. You're feeling happy. You're feeling full. Just like when you have a full meal, you're not hankering for anything else. You can see other things. You can see a very nice cake or a very nice sabji or whatever, but you're not inclined because you're full. So devotee, because he's full, he's not envious of others. He's not jealous of others. He's not greedy. He's very, very jolly. And others can have so many things, but he's not feeling, I need this. If I don't have this, I can't be happy. He can see others having their thing, but he's not hankering for these particular things because he has a very satisfying existence. And that comes, as I mentioned, from the fact that he's in a healthy state. That healthy state, and the sign of that healthy consciousness, is that he's trying to render service to Krishna. He knows that I am connected to Krishna. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And the activity that he does regularly is a sign of that consciousness that reflects that state of consciousness. Therefore, Prabhupada called it the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Let the society be there. That's not the problem. But let the society be Krishna conscious. That's the problem. Varnashram is not a problem, but when it's detached from Krishna, that's a problem. Anything detached from Krishna, that's the problem. That's the state of disease, that we are separate from Krishna. Just like now we're distant from the sun and we feel cold. Coldness, ice, is not a sign of energy. It's an absence of energy. When you remove energy, you get cold. But when you get closer to the sun, then you get heat. So similarly, in the material world, we're distant from Krishna. And therefore, naturally, there's suffering. Suffering is a negative thing. It's not a positive. It's a negative thing. Just like darkness, it's an absence of light. So it's a negative thing. So material energy is a negative thing. It is devoid of Krishna. And we as living entity, we're trying to animate this material world. Mamayavam sho jiva loke, jiva bhutana, sanatana, manasastanindriyani, prakritishkarni shashati. That the living entity, the jiva, is struggling with the material energy because it's dead and he's trying to bring it alive. He's trying to give it some value, give it some. And what happens? He becomes drained. It sucks your vitality. It sucks all your energy because you're trying to maintain something that's not alive. So this body is actually a drain on the soul. It's not something, it covers the soul, but it drains the soul of its energy because we're trying to keep something alive that is not. But when you connect with Krishna or devotional activity, that's alive because it's connected with Krishna. So it's coming closer to the sun. Naturally, you don't have to endeavor for heat. You're right there. If you want to avoid the winter, you go to Florida because you're closer to the sun. It's warm there. You don't have to make an effort. Here, there's so many efforts we have to do because we have to deal with the winter. And even all the things we do, we're still dealing with the winter. We're just coping with this situation, but we're not resolving it. But when you go to Florida or some warm country, India or someplace, then you've resolved it. So Krishna constant means resolving the problems, dealing with it. By what? By changing not your place, but changing your consciousness from material, from mundane, that I'm the enjoyer, to no, I am not the enjoyer. I am the secondary enjoyer. I enjoy in conjunction with Krishna as a servant of Krishna. So that's the devotional principle. There's a principle. There has to be an understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And as coming back to the initial point, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And if you're forgetting Krishna or you're not inspired to remember Krishna, then you have to find out why. What is the cause of that? And you have to eliminate that cause. So, of course, we know the cause is because we've been associating with material energy for so long that we have forgotten our real position as servants of Krishna. We have a warped, a distorted vision of how things should be. This material world distorts the vision of the living entity, and he makes it seemingly that I'm the controller, and therefore, by being the controller, I will be the enjoyer. And the modes of nature, ignorance, passion, and goodness are like that lens that we're trying to see through that blurs our vision. Therefore, we have to rise to the platform of Sudasattva, pure goodness. And that Sudasattva platform will just bring that distorted consciousness back to our original consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness. So that is the principle of what the devotee is trying to achieve. We're not trying to invest our time with material energy, thinking material energy is a solution, like the materialists. We're not trying to destroy our existence and attain nirvana like the Buddhists. We're not trying to merge like the Mayavadi and personalists, but we're trying to unite with Krishna in loving devotion. So that ends my little presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And now I will be more than happy to try to answer any questions that...
I have some questions. So very wonderful. You nicely explain all things, details. It is very, very impressive and very wonderful. I appreciate for your time. So now question asking for you. So according to the Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there is a 64 item for devotional service. And all 64 items, 5 items is more prominent and important, like worship the deity, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associate among the devotees, Sankirtan, and living in Mathura like Holy Dham. So you have few questions about this. Living is Holy Dham. So if people have not opportunity to live the Holy Dham, so how it balance these things? How your opinion for that? Because
what is
Holy Dham like Mathura, Vrindavan.
Yes, we know it's Mathura, Vrindavan. But what does that signify? Like Prabhupada said, if you're looking for gold, you have to know what gold is. And is it 10 karat, 14 karat, or 24 karat? So that you have to know to begin with. So you have to know what is a holy dham. Holy dham is a place where Krishna enacted his pastimes.
Yes,
that's why it's holy. So if we can manufacture, if we can make those pastimes here in our environment where we're living, what we're doing, by how Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, by doing these things, by reading the Bhagavatam, by doing kirtans, by worshiping, then we create a holy dham wherever we are. So the holy dham can be anywhere. Of course, Vrindavan, Mathura, it's more sanctified because Krishna went there and so forth. But it doesn't diminish. Like Prabhupada called West Virginia, the place that the Kirtananda started, he called it New Vrindavan. And we have New Raymond in Florida. And we have New this, just like Prabhupada said, you have New York. So we have New Vrindavan. So he anticipated that everywhere, New Dwarka, we have in Los Angeles. So why? Because the deities are there, the devotees are there, we're worshiping Krishna. We're doing the very same thing that is going on in Vrindavan. So you have to create a place where you're going to live, and therefore that place will become Vrindavan. That we have the capacity. We have to invite Krishna. And every home, like in Vrindavan, you have major temples, but you have so many small temples also, people's homes. They're little temples. So Prabhupada wanted us to have our own little, you can have little deities of Krishna. You can do the same thing, Mangalarti. When you come back from work, if you have to go to work, then you can listen to Krishna. You can have a little kirtan. You can read Bhagavad Gita. You can offer all your food to Krishna. So the same purification is there. You're chanting your rounds. So you can have Vrindavan everywhere. It's not that you have to necessarily go to India. And even that Vrindavan, Boma Vrindavan, is not necessarily the spiritual world. And even if you go to Vrindavan, what is the vision? Because there are many entities who live in Vrindavan. There are Muslims that are there. There's pigs. There's also mosquitoes. So they don't necessarily all have transcendental vision just because they're living in Vrindavan. Right. But they're fortunate, no doubt, to be born there. But Prabhupada sometimes gave the example of the king. He's king, but the flea is still biting him because the flea doesn't recognize that he's a king. So there may be many people there going to Vrindavan, but they're not necessarily all there for the right reason. So we have to develop the right understanding, and we have the capacity to make everywhere we go. And that's why the pure devotee, he's known as a walking tirtha. Because everywhere he goes, Srila Prabhupada, everywhere he went, he created a transcendental atmosphere. He transformed that place, and it became spiritual. So that is the sadhu, because they carry Krishna everywhere. We also carry Krishna as Antayami, but we're not aware. To the degree that you're aware that Krishna is with you, then you're living in Vrindavan all the time. Because what is Vrindavan? Vrindavan is where Krishna is. So Krishna is in my heart. So therefore, I'm also living in Vrindavan. But do I have that understanding? Do I have that realization? That's what we're trying to attain.
Thank you. Thank you. So another one is like worshipping deity. So if people are not initiated, then how they worship deity?
You don't have to be initiated to worship deity. I mean, everyone can worship Krishna. Of course, if they're installed deities, that's a different thing. There are different levels of deity worship also. But you can have small deities at home or a picture. Krishna comes in different forms. It can be a picture, it can be a painting, it can be a marble statue, it can be a bronze statue, it can be different forms that Krishna is there. And when you install those deities, that's a different thing. But anyone can worship, just like anyone can chant Hare Krishna. Nama, Rupa, they're the names, the pastimes, the form. These are all Krishna. So if you can chant Hare Krishna, you can also worship Krishna. There's no difference. There's just different forms that Krishna manifests himself for our benefit. Krishna is so kind that, okay, if you're not attracted to this, then get attracted to that. If you're not attracted to, and sometimes we trick people, we give them prasadam They don't even know what prasadam. We meet people on the street, we give them, but that prasadam is not different than the deity. That prasadam is not different than the holy name, but they may not appreciate Krishna in the form of the holy name. They may not appreciate Krishna in the form of his deity, but they'll appreciate him in the form of a cookie or a samosa or a puri or, gulab jamun or rasgulla. So, okay, that's your conditioning, but Krishna is so kind that he comes for his devotee. He incarnates in so many. We're reading this morning in the Bhagavatam how Krishna comes as Nrsimha, Varaha. He comes as Dattatreya, Parashuram. Why? For the devotee's sake. To enact pastime for the pleasure. Of course, he kills the demons, but that's a secondary reason. But the primary reason he comes is for the pleasure of his devotees. And ultimately, we're all devotees of Krishna. Even the non-devotees, those who are not aware, they're ultimately devotees of Krishna. So Krishna comes in the form that they can appreciate him. And that may be a rasgulla or gulab jamun. But if we can appreciate Krishna, then we can have murtis of Krishna, and we can work, and it depends on your devotion. It depends how much devotion. And if you have that much devotion, then line up your life so that you do eventually get initiated and you do take Brahminical initiation. These are important steps in Adoshraddha, Tasta Sangha, Sadhu Bhajana Kriya. These are different steps that are there described where you make a commitment. Initiation means that you've made a formal commitment to Krishna consciousness in the form of your spiritual master, but you've actually signed a contract. It's not just, I'll think about it. Yeah, you have a car you're selling on KGG. I come and see it and I say, yeah, maybe I'll buy it. Maybe I'll think about it. It's not a done deal. But it's when I give you a deposit, then I say, okay, I want this car. Please reserve it for me. Here's $200. Here's $1,000, whatever. I've made a commitment. So initiation means you've made a formal commitment that this is what I'm prepared to do for the rest of my life. So that there's an importance there in taking initiation. But if one has not taken initiation, it should not be barring him from offering devotion to Krishna. So that's the main point. Try to develop devotion for Krishna, initiated or not.
Thank you. So one more thing is, what is the installed deity and non-installed deity difference between two deities?
Well, the installation of a deity and non-installation, one is, again, it's a contract. When you install the deity, you're making an agreement with the Lord that you're going to offer so many artiks a day, you're going to cook and make so many offerings a day. There's going to be a regulation in the amount of worship that you do every day. There's going to be a minimum of demand placed on you, that you're voluntarily prepared to say, okay, Krishna, from now on, this is the standard that I've set for myself. When a deity is not installed, you can offer, not offer. You may be gone for 2 weeks on vacation, and you just leave the deities there. They're not installed. There's no formal agreement there. And you cannot make one offering in the day if you have time, and you may not do it. You may do 3 offerings that day because you have some guests over and you have you're cooking extra. So it's not. It's your Istadev. You want to offer your devotion to someone, and that Krishna is there. It's not impersonal. You recognize that Krishna as a form, and you want to offer that something to that form of Krishna. But you're not prepared. You don't have the standard that you want to commit to. But when you install the deities, then you're making a commitment, and that's the difference.
Thank you. So another is, so it is essential to take initiation from Guru.
It's not essential. Sukadev Goswami never took initiation. Lord Chaitanya went South India and so many places. He didn't necessarily initiate people. He encouraged them to chant Hare Krishna. The Maha Mantra is, transcendental to all these things. So, but at the same time, you want to put everything to the best on your, to the best in your favor. So it's recommended, strongly recommended, that it's not just a ritual. It's very important. Bhaktisiddhanta, from Gaurkishore Das Babaji, he so much wanted to get initiated. Then first, when he asked Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj about it, he said, yeah, I will think about it. Then the second time he asked them, he said, well, I will ask Mahaprabhu. Then the third time he said, oh, I forgot to ask.
Yes.
You know? And then Bhaktisiddhanta was going to commit suicide. He said, well, if I'm not going to be accepted by you, what's the point of going on and living? So, it's very, very important. Narottam Das Thakur with Lokanath Maharaj, he was cleaning his latrine and cleaning everything. And, though Lokanath was a king or coming from a princely class, he was hiding and doing all these things. And Narottam was so, in Krishna consciousness, but later he realized, so he took initiation. These things are there, very important, but they're there to assist the devotee. When one hears the mantra coming from a spiritual master, that purity is transmitted to the disciple, and the disciple now has the bija, the seed of bhakti that has been planted by the guru in his heart, by which it can sprout. So that's the principle of bhakti, that I have a seed and I'm giving that seed to you, and I'm planting that seed. Now, you have to water that seed and you have to look after it. If that seed is planted in the soil, but it's never watered, it's not put in the heat, it's not put in the sunshine, it's not going to grow, even the seed's there. So you have to create the devotee, the devotee who's being initiated, he has to create the favorable circumstances by which that seed will fructify. But the guru has planted that seed. So there's a difference in some scriptures describe also that one is not really chanting the holy name unless it's received by the pure devotee. So that's there also. Although other scriptures will say the holy name is transcendental, like Ajamil, their stories, to demonstrate the potency of the holy name, that the holy name is pure in itself. It doesn't require anything. But our capacity to receive Krishna, our capacity to actually chant Krishna, because there's Nama Parad, Nama Ba, Sudanam. So the real chanting is the level on Sudanam. Although the other ones are clearing and they're purifying processes, they're not the holy name per se. They're the twilight reflection of the holy name. So one who gets initiated by a spiritual master, he gets the bija, the seed, and he gets also guidance. That can be from the Diksha or the Shiksha Guru, but there has to be guidance. In other words, if you go to university, you have to register yourself. You can sit in the class and you can hear everything, but that will not be so much recognized. It's recognized when you actually register yourself. And initiation means also, as I was saying earlier with the deities, is you're making a formal commitment that I'm going to chant so many rounds, I'm going to follow 4 regular principles. In ISKCON, it's 16 rounds every day, follow 4 regular principles. Amongst other devotional things that you're going to do, these are the basic, these are the must. These are the things you're definitely going to do. They're not something I might do. These are obligations. You have no choice. Just like sometimes you go on computer and there are questions and they say, you have to answer this question. You can't skip it and go somewhere else. If you don't answer this question, that's it. The program doesn't continue. You can't go more. You have to. They want these information. So Krishna consciousness, when you get initiated, these things are obligated to you. You have to do these things. You have to follow the principle, chant 16 rounds. That's a commitment you make. And when you make commitment, what happens? You make progress. When you have a job and you're committed to your job, who gets promoted? When the boss is looking at the employees, who's he going to promote for the new opening? One person retired, or one person got sick, or changed his job, he quit. There's an opening in the job. There's 20 employees. Who's he going to promote? He's going to promote that one who's mostly obligated to the job. Not the guy who's lazy, who never comes, who's always late, who always has excuses. And so, no, the guy who's committed. So if we're committed to Krishna consciousness, we're going to make spiritual progress. We're going to get closer to Krishna. And these are some of the understandings of other things also, but these are basic understanding of what initiation signifies and what it represents.
Okay, one more question is how to maintain the like material life and spiritual life, like Grihastha ashram, they have a lot of activities. But if sannyasi or brahmachari, they're only doing there. They're no need continue or to material societies. But
Yeah.
Grihastha have to maintain society. They have a lot of job and also maintain Krishna consciousness. How to do in the Grihastha life balance these things?
Well, no matter which ashram you're in, you have to deal with your mind. You have to deal with desires. So these are the fundamental principles on all ashrams. If your desires are not simplified, if they're not focused on Krishna, if your mind is not peaceful, if you're not content, as I was mentioning earlier, then the mind is a devil's workshop. It's always imagining so many things. The grass is always greener on the other side. Maybe the Prabhupada said the brahmachari is lamenting that he's not married. Then the grihastha is lamenting that he is married, or he's not married with the right wife or the right husband. Then the sannyasi, he's thinking, why did I leave my wife? So this is all the mental platform. Krishna consciousness is a haitakiya pratiyata. There's no material impediment. Now, practically speaking, it comes back to the principle of devotional service. What am I trying to accomplish in my grihastha life? What am I doing? What is the goal of grihastha life? So these are the questions we have to ask. Grihastha life is not a life of enjoyment. It's a life of temporarily suspending our situation while we're progressing to something else. Because in the material world, everyone is crazy. We're all crazy. So Varnashram is a system to deal with our madness. So it gives us an opportunity where, okay, now I can be in this situation where I'm peaceful. There's a break. And therefore, from that position, it's like a trampoline. I can bounce to something. I can bounce into my spiritual life. I can bounce into my Krishna consciousness. So if you don't want too much, I mean, of course, you can get so entangled. But Prabhupada explained it a little bit like salt. When you're eating a sabji, a dish that has no salt, it's acceptable, but it's not so pleasant. You put a little salt, it's nice, grihastha life. Too much salt, unpalatable. You cannot eat. That's griyameti. So there is a difference between grihastha life and griyameti. Grihastha life means you're always focused on what am I trying to accomplish here? What is my goal? I'm trying to develop devotional service. I'm trying to develop attachment for Krishna. I don't have that right now. I have attachment for material things. Okay, so Krishna is giving me a break. Grihastha life means, okay, you have a platform by which you can work. But yat karosi yadashnasi, that's why I was quoting that verse, that you have to offer everything to Krishna. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, I would have 100 children. Nice. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, I would have 100 children if I could make them Krishna conscious. So there's a description that don't become a father, don't become a husband, don't become a guru, don't become a son. If you cannot liberate your dependent, if you can't bring them to Krishna consciousness. So the Grihastha ashram, it's an ashram that entangles you to liberate you. It's like when you have a forest fire. That forest fire is so big, it's very hard to extinguish it. So what do? You build another fire. You have a fire coming from north, going south. Very big fire. You light a fire south and you direct it north. When the both fires get together, they extinguish because there's no more combustible material around it. So it's a grihastha ashram. It's fenced. It's not a wild thing that anything's possible and I can do any nonsense. It's an ashram as much as the other ashrams. There's rules and regulations that one has to follow. So yes, the husband has desires, the wife has desires. It's like two fires, but they're coming together to what? To try to extinguish that fire. They're not trying to inflame it. So there has to be dampers. When you're lighting a fire, any fire, if you have a fireplace, there's dampers. So the fire doesn't burn the house down. You have to regulate that fire, dampen it, so it burns, but slowly, quietly, not too fast. Grihastha life is like that also. There's dampers. That dampers are Krishna consciousness. They're the advice of the guru. There are the sadhus. There's the other sadhu grihastas that are there to guide us, to help us, to inspire us. If our parents, if somehow we're gurukulis or we've born in this movement, we may have our parents who are also devotees who've set a nice example. So we have to see a grihastha life is not looking at a handsome husband or a pure, a pretty face. There has to be something more solid than that. So I advise people who want to get married or not married yet, who like to get married, go live. Find grihasthas who are ideal, who are mature, who are demonstrating a mature level of Krishna consciousness despite their grihastha lives, and go and live with them for a week or two. Go see how they tangibly live, what they're doing, how they're coexisting. And Prabhupada used to say, man is good, woman is good, together it's bad. So it's a difficult arrangement, no doubt. But it requires maturity. It requires long-term vision. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a 25-year, the ashrams are 25-year brahmachari, 25-year grihastha, 25-year vanaprastha, sanya. Why such a long period? So you get time to adjust. It's a process that takes time. We're conditioned. We've been in the material world for millions of lifetimes with so many desires and so forth. So now we have to regulate. The first thing you have to do is first find the regulation, regulate yourself. Find a level by which, okay, I'm content now. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. Okay. And from that, you can gradually start detaching. But our process is not detachment. Our process is attachment. We want to become attached to Krishna. Naturally, by becoming attached to Krishna, we'll become detached. Because if you become detached, you empty the glass, you have an empty glass, anything can go in. Our process is to fill the glass with Krishna. So any nonsense comes, it just overflows. It can't get in. The glass is full. It's full of what? It's full of Krishna. So we want to fill our glass with Krishna. But it may not be full. It may be only a bottom. It might just be a little bottom, a spoon or two of Krishna consciousness, and the rest is full of ink. It's full of nonsense. We have to gradually remove that. Well, the only way you can remove it is by filling it with something else. That has to be Krishna consciousness. But one has to have that taste. And that taste takes time before we actually, because I'm enjoying something right now, watching TV, per se, or anything, right? I like to listen to music. And so to give that up, I have to experience something else. What's going to motivate me to give that up? Rasoham apsikunteya. I have to experience something more. I have to experience a higher taste. Then I can give up the lower taste. So the more I associate with Krishna consciousness and I start developing a taste and I start appreciating that, then naturally I'll give up. I'll say, I don't have time for this nonsense. Or if I have enough philosophy and understanding, I'll look at the nonsense and say, why am I watching this nonsense? It makes no sense. This movie makes no sense. It's ridiculous. Why am I wasting my time? So you'll become self-disciplined. You'll become a disciple. You'll become a disciple of Krishna. Disciple means self-discipline. You'll voluntarily want to give up all the nonsense. Why? Because you're experiencing a higher taste, and that higher taste, you don't want to lose it. Like the gopis, just blinking of the eyes and not seeing Krishna for a second, they're cursing Brahma. What a fool. He's created eyelids. That is preventing me from seeing Krishna. Just see their intensity. Lord Chaitanya said, at moments, it feels like 12 years or more. So we have to develop that taste. So we have to organize our lives in such a way. We have to manage our lives like people manage their finance. People manage their health. We have to manage our Krishna consciousness. We have to see, okay, how am I going to organize my life in such a way that I can accomplish? That means going to bed early. If you go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock, means you'll be able to get up at 4, and then you'll be able to chant good rounds. But if you go to bed at midnight because you're watching this or watching that or talk, then you're going to get up at 7, 8 o'clock. Then how are you going to be able to go chant your rounds? You have to get ready and go to work. So you have to know, okay, then I have to go to bed earlier so I can get up earlier and chant my rounds. Then you have to decide how many children you want. Do I want that kind? Okay, it's very nice. But if you have 4 children, it's going to be more demanding than if you only have 1. But Bhaktivinoda had so many children. Advaita Acharya, I think, had 12 children. So, it's not there's no limit to that, but it depends what you're ready to take on and how responsible you're going to be, because there's a consequence to all these things. There's a commitment to all these things. So you have to be sober about it. And like I say, associating with, it's nice to associate with sannyasis and so forth. But as grihastas, they may not be the ones who are that expert who can answer all our day-to-day life questions, nor would they maybe even interested in dealing with that. So we may want to find a shiksha, that can guide us on the practical level. It's very nice. You may have the best doctor in the world, but if he lives in London, how's he going to cure you? You have to have a local doctor.
Yes,
you may refer to that doctor because he's very good and he's a world-class doctor. But he lives in London, he lives in India, and you're living in Canada. So you have to find someone who locally lives and can guide you, can inspire you in devotional service. So I don't know.
Thank you so much. Very wonderfully explained. So we are going last question. So
Right.
Prabhupada always asking the bona fide spiritual master. So their question is how to know the bona fide spiritual master.
Well, bona fide means who is repeating Krishna's words, who's saying that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's also doing that worship himself, who's representing Krishna. Just like if you work for a company, you have to be representing that company. If you're taking the vehicle and doing something else with it, moving your friends, then you're not representing that company. If you're taking contracts, at night, or you go to see someone and you say, hey, I'll come tonight and I'll do that same work and I'll charge you half the price. This company will charge you $2,000, but I can do it for $1,000. Then you're not representing the company. You're cheating the company. These are the company's clients, and you're taking advantage, pretending to come there as a representative of the company, but you're doing something else to profit on your own. So a devotee never tries to profit from Krishna. He's always trying to serve Krishna. So these are some of the symptoms, and he's not trying to hide Krishna. He's always presenting Krishna forward. Prabhupada never hid Krishna. He's told us, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you take it. If you don't want to take it, you're a nonsense. I've done my business. So that is one way of knowing. Then, is he acknowledged by other saintly Vaishnavas? Krishna consciousness is not a one-to-one thing. It's a family thing. It's a big family. So just like the doctor, how do you know he's a doctor? Well, he has his university diplomas. Then he's recommended by other doctors, and he may be connected with an institution like a hospital or some other institution that recognizes him as a doctor. So similarly in Krishna consciousness, was he initiated? Is he part of a parampara, sampradaya? Is he connected with a spiritual master? Do other saintly persons recognize him? And is he endorsing the scriptures? Is he speaking the scriptures? Like Prabhupada, he gave the Sanskrit, he gave the Roman transliteration, he gave the word for word, he gave the verse. That way it's very clear. There was no secrets with Prabhupada. And he never presented things such a way you could not understand. Everything was very clear. And he wanted people to ask questions. But it was never, this is a mystery. This is so elite, you can't understand it. It wasn't like that. He was giving something that everyone could apply. It wasn't meant for a little club, a little group of elites, a little special. No, he didn't make sannyas special. He didn't make grihasta special. He didn't make GBC special. There was no one special. You were special only if you were able to serve Krishna. And that's what Prabhupada recognized. Anyone who's serving Krishna. The little ant was serving Krishna, and the Hanuman was serving Krishna, and Ram was acknowledging both. So that is how you tell if one is a bona fide spiritual master. And if you have difficulty, then get help. Go see someone who is a Vaishnava, who is a devotee, who can help you and guide you in that. Our process is not a lonely process. Our process is sharing and trying to understand. So there are many people, many Vaishnavas are there. They're all meant there. If they're senior, they're well-wishers. They're all meant for us to take guidance and to ask questions and to understand, because the intelligence is the cousin of the soul. If you're going to act on the level of the soul, you have to have the intelligence that will inspire you to do that. Therefore, you have to understand what you're doing. You have to understand Krishna consciousness. You have to know why you're wearing tilak, why we have sikas, why we have neck beads. What are all these things? They're not just whimsical rituals. They have precise reasons for that. And when we understand all these things, they're meant for our benefit. Then we can, as I mentioned earlier, we can the warped consciousness. Our consciousness is distracted. It's warped. It's we can rectify that. We can straighten our consciousness by understanding the principles behind Krishna consciousness, principle, what we're doing, why we're doing these things. And that's what the acharyas have done. They've given us so many literatures so that we can understand the process of Krishna consciousness and the principles behind them.
So last one is has a Srila Prabhupada disciple, and in Prabhupada time everything is going as it is. Now is gone and Srila Prabhupada is gone. So what your advice for next generation to getting Srila Prabhupada mission as it is?
Well, the mission hasn't changed. The mission is the same. This is Sanatan Dharma. It's the eternal Dharma. So the Sanatan means the process of engaging eternal service to Krishna. So there, of course, there's deity worship, there's book distribution, there's Harinam, there's Prasadam distribution. There's so many things can be done. But ultimately, it's the same thing. It's how you're going to engage yourself in service to Krishna, and how you're going to be a servant in the institution. If you want to be connected to ISKCON, well, find out what the needs are of ISKCON. Excuse me. It may mean just passing the broom in the temple room. It may be making garlands. It may be donating some of the money. Maybe you're so busy. So if you're so busy working, find some money then. Give some money to the temple. Get behind book distribution. There are many devotees who are going out. Prabhupada said for one soldier to be on the battlefield, there has to be 10 people behind to support that soldier who needs food, who needs clothing, who needs ammunition, supplies. And so all these things are required. He may be shooting, the enemy, but unless he's being supplied by a whole army behind him, by a whole group of people that is supporting, then how long will he last in the battlefield? So, we may have our sannyasis, we may have our brahmacharis who are doing direct preaching. That's what they should be doing. That's their ashram. And we may not, for different reasons, be able to strictly or directly participate, although we should. There's no impediment. We can go on Harinam, but if we're busy with our family and our work and all that, then we can contribute financially. We can give some money to support that preaching in the forms of books and so forth. And in that way, we can be engaged. But ISKCON, like Prabhupada said, the new cover, an old book and a new cover. So the cover may change, some disposition, some things may have changed, certain things, but the book is the same. The book won't change. Bhagavad Gita as it is, it's still the same Bhagavad Gita. It's still Sarva Dhammam Parityajya. That's still there. Find a means, how am I going to surrender to Krishna? What does surrender mean? What do we mean by surrender? And how am I going to accomplish that surrender? What activity am I going to perform? It's not just armchair philosophy. There has to be practical service. So either you do it through your words, you do it through your actions, or you do it through your money, your finances. But something has to be offered to Krishna. So, and old or new Prabhupada disciple or new generation, it's the same thing that can be done. Same activity can be performed.
Thank you. I just one announcement. So next week, Saturday, come with live Giriraj Maharaj. So
Oh.
I invite everybody to come Giriraj Maharaj.
Blessed to have Maharaj.
Yeah, Jai, Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Laksminatha Prabhu ki jai. So Prabhu, you get wonderful explanation. Everything's so nice. I like to talk more, but we are timing. Because of time, we cannot do more. Already we
Always the
exceed
time
15 minutes. Yeah.
It's always
And
a
it
time
is,
factor that's there for sure. Okay,
yeah,
well,
and
thank you. Very nice program, and hopefully devotees will enjoy some of the answers. And thank you very
yes, and this is
much for your
very
nice.
wonderful.
It's
Everything
always
is so. It
satisfying
is.
questions. Yeah.
You are so kind to present here. Thank you so much. And please bless us. Then this we can serve more.
Yeah. Well, the
Hare
blessed.
Krishna. Thank you everyone to Hare Krishna and see you next
Hare
week.
Krishna. Glories to
Hare
Srila.
Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you.